What's good, YouTube? menaofsteel here. And before we get into the main point of the video, which is why I truly believe it is best to play multiple decks in order to climb in Pokemon Pocket, I believe it is important to give some backstory or information on how I came up with this video or what led me to making this video. As always, if you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. And I also stream Mondays through Fridays at 11 p.m. Eastern, so feel free to tune into that as I stream on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. So if you watch my last video, you might be aware that I've set out to maximize my streams by using only one deck the entire session, which for context is a 4-hour session that I do daily, in an attempt to not only test the viability of the deck that we are testing, but also how well it performs versus the meta. However, there's one glaring or big blatant issue with this approach, which is the fact that what even is the meta. And I know you'll say, oh, Sylveon Greninja's everywhere, Charizard's everywhere, and I sort of agree, but the higher you get in Master Ball, or I guess the lower, if you're in Ultra Ball or Master or Great Ball, you see completely different formats. And then even day to day, from top 500, from top 1000 to top 100, there's a whole different not elo, but I felt like ecosystem of decks. It's weird. It's hard to explain, but I kind of have the numbers to back it up. Despite I'm aware that it's not enough of a sample size to call it fact, but it's enough to get the vague idea of what is going on in ranked. At least the first deck that I used was the Evolution, the EV box, the Leafeon Flareon EX deck. However, the next deck I wanted to try out was the Tapu Koko Arceus deck. It had gained quite a bit of traction recently, and it worked wonders for me off stream, so I was excited to stream it. However, nobody could prepare me for what happened on my first attempt, which is before even getting halfway through the stream, I was only 10 games in. My computer just crashed. I was 8-2 in the middle of a 5-game win streak when my computer crashed, and I ended up getting the loss for the game I was in. And although I had to end stream early, I was quite frustrated. I decided to run it back the next day, and here were the results. And as you can see, what happened? We went from a deck that was doing crazy 8-2 5-game win streaks to a deck that didn't even break even. I think in the entire 4 hours I went up 20 points due to streaks here and there, but realistically I spent 4 hours and had no progress whatsoever, which is not what I'm trying to say oh, you gotta change decks because this deck didn't work for me. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm also not saying that you can't go on a great run, play Sylvalla Rampardos and climb 150 200 points in one day. I'm not saying you can't do that either. I'm just telling you the best way to optimize is being able to adapt, and trust me, it'll make sense once we start looking into deeper details. Regardless, for the stats of this stream, we did play 28 games in the 4 hours, which is kind of slow. I feel like the deck isn't as fast as so obviously Sylvalla or Oricorio is a much faster deck. Sylvalla is a faster win condition. Tapu Koko, although yes, when you're going second and you start with it, it's very fast. There's certain matchups where it goes slower. An Arceus is obviously just a finisher, so it's not going to be as fast or as aggressive as Sylvalla. Nonetheless, we went 13, 14, and 1. We went first in about half our games. The 2 times we led with Arceus was a loss, which is kind of to be expected. I don't have the stats on the winner losses for leading Koko and leading Zeraora, but it was kind of even the games that we started first with Zeraora, which is ideal, and then Koko going second. One time I did lead Koko going second, was in a great position. However, the mirror match bricked and led with Oricorio, and it actually countered us perfectly. Something that doesn't happen usually, but I felt like bringing it up because in the moment I was frustrated with that as well. But this doesn't tell the whole story. And just in case you guys are interested in the list, this was the list that I was using. I'm aware the stats that I use aren't very motivating to try out this deck list, but trust me, it's very solid. It has some really good matchups. If you're seeing a lot of Sylveon, Greninja, and Charizard, trust me, this is the way to go. As you can see, is the 2 Oricorios, 2 Zeraoras. I'm only playing the 1 Tapu Koko, and to be honest, I find it to be a liability. I know a lot of lists on the tournament scene are using 2. I'm not saying it's incorrect. I'm just not a fan of it. The 1 Arceus is just a finisher. Has more health than most other options that this deck could have in that slot. Then we have obviously staples and 2 researchers, and then in the supporter slots we have PCL, Giovanni, Sabrina, Cyrus. As you can see, Dawn is such a good and strong, powerful card in this deck. With Zeraora gaining energy as well as electrical cord spreading the energy of the Pokemon that got bodied the turn before, you're able to adapt and change the tempo of in which you're attacking at a pace that your opponent can't necessarily keep up with or have any real control of or expectation of. As at any moment you could hit him with Dawn and completely turbo out the damage you're applying. Mars for hand disruption. Guzma is just great for the amount of tools that are being seen in all the formats, especially mirror matches. It works well against Buzzwole, against Darktina. The list goes on and on. Charizard's playing their cape. It's everywhere, right? Then we're playing 2 electrical cords because it maximizes the energy production from Zeraora ramping to being able to charge up your Arceus without having to focus on giving it 3 energies. And then Giant Cape is just so that Arceus dodges some ranges. Sometimes it helps Oricorio dodge getting 1 shot in 1 turn by Greninja. There's many uses to this deck. It's very fun. If you want to see gameplay with this deck, The entire VOD will be linked down below, as well as you can find it on my channel. The live streams always get saved as VODs, so whether you catch my live stream or not, you can find the gameplay that I do all throughout my entire climb through Master Ball. But what really important is this. As you can see, these are the stats that of like the top 5 decks that we played the most of. The only one that didn't make the list is Guzzlord, that we also played 3 times, similar to Darkrai and Charizard, but we went 2-1 against them. However, I felt like if they played it better, Guzzlord should be beating us. It's a bad matchup for us, but it's not as popular as the decks that we see here. As you can see here, the Oricorio is actually representing Silvally Oricorio. We didn't face the Tapu Koko version this time around, but what's great, or I mean, not what's great, what really stands out to me is the matchups, right? Remember I said I initially went 8-2 with this deck, and I was crushing it. I was a 5-game win streak. In those 10 games, I faced 4 Charizards and an Incineroar. So half of my games were against fire decks that could not hurt Oricorio, and I just cleaned house. However, the following day, in a 4-hour period, I only went against 3 Charizards in the entire 4 hours. So like in a fourth of that time, I faced more Charizards. Thus, it was a better day to be using a deck like this one, which is why I'm stressing or trying to make this video as a whole. Granted, it might be all over the place, so I don't know how it is for retention or how well do like viewership wise, if I'll get the message through, because there's a lot of yapping before and after. But it's so important not to just necessarily like, oh, you can only play one deck or you shouldn't be playing one deck. It's being able to recognize and adapt to what the player base is doing in the current moment, right? As always, you'll always see a bunch of Sylveon Greninjas. So if you have a deck that could beat that, that's probably like step 1 is like, can you compete against Sylveon Greninja? If you can't, that deck is probably not the pick. But then you got to go down the tiers. Like if you're seeing a lot of Charizards, then you want a deck that has Oricorio, could counter Charizard. But then if you're not seeing a lot of Charizard, maybe it's not Oricorio's time. Or maybe you're seeing a lot of Solgaleos. Like if you're seeing a lot of Solgaleos and Charizards, then obviously Oricorio decks this deck would be insane. However, if those decks are missing from the current, like, and you're seeing a whole bunch of Guzzlords, a bunch of Silvally Oricorios, that if they go second, it's very hard for you to compete at all. And if you're going second, if you open improperly, you also struggle to win because they're far more aggressive. So it gets tough. And when it comes to Darktina, I've made my own video. As a Darktina player, or as a guy that likes to use Darktina, I'm never scared of Oricorio. As long as you have your Rocky Helmet, as long as you play and switch around enough, if you have your healing, Oricorio does not deal enough damage to beat a Darkrai, like more often than not, if you play it correctly. Because the common decks that are using Oricorio nowadays are not the Simon Nobi Greninja version that are able to heal it with Irida. Usually they have not enough healing, if healing at all. Thus, eventually you will weather them down and win in the long run, even if it takes all 30 turns. But however, let's look at the matchups that I did with the EV box deck the day before, or I guess 2 days before. As you can see here, the most popular decks at that time, as I guess mentioned, Sylveon Greninja is always going to be there. You're going to see a whole bunch of them. It's Charizard. I saw as many Charizards, I saw Sylveon Greninjas. If this lineup faced the Oricorio Tapu Koko deck that we just played with Arceus, our win percentage would have been so much higher, maybe than even this deck right here, where we managed 56%. Had we faced 7 Charizards, we most likely would have gone like 7-0, maybe 6-1 if one of them pulled off the Flareon out, or if they even had it in the deck. Which, putting it into perspective, is crazy. But I am aware that we have no control over what we face, but you have to keep in mind that it's important to adapt to what you're facing. The format tends to change day to day, and this is one of those examples where one day you'll see a whole bunch of Charizards. You could adapt, play Oricorios. That doesn't mean your next matchup is going to be a Charizard, but that means in the next 10-20 games, the chances that you see Charizard are going to be higher than in a day where you're seeing no Charizards, because maybe people adapted and now they're playing a whole bunch of Guzzlords that counter Charizards and the Oricorios. So you got to like keep playing with the format, keep adapting. That's why it's always good to have a rotation, is what I'm pretty much trying to point out. Because as you can see, if you go by the stats, this deck is like dirt poor. Like it's just terrible. It's like, oh, I don't want to go into ranked and go 4 hours and not gain anything. But maybe in a different like headspace, or in a different like, if I wasn't trying to make this video, which actually I wasn't even trying to make this video, I was trying to make a video about Tapu Koko with Arceus. If I wasn't trying to make that video, I probably would have swapped this deck infinitely before, because only seeing 3 Charizards is not what this deck is aiming for. As you can see, we went against 4 EVs that they have the Leafeon or the Flareon non-EX to out your Oricorios. Not to mention that when we were playing the EVs ourselves, that day we didn't see a single EV in 4 hours. So it's the type of thing where like you have to adapt to what you're facing. That's why, regardless of what your favorite deck is or what you plan on using in ranked, always have a second or third option that could react to whatever is being most played in the moment. And above all else, you need an answer to Sylveon Greninja. That's the big bad. If you're playing Sylveon Greninja, then you have nothing to worry about. You are the big bad. You are the person that people are trying to adapt to. Don't worry about anything else. But if you're trying to play these other decks, whether it's an Oricorio list or Rampardos or something that, or Garchomp, and something like that that is dependent on something else, or is a meta call, make sure you're paying attention to the meta that's like in front of you. Don't react immediately either. Don't be like, oh, I faced 2 Charizards in a row. Actually, no. If you face 2 Charizards in a row, it's like maybe it's time to put some more Oricoleos. And even though maybe you go the next 3 games without seeing Charizard, you know they're there and they're in your like in your group, right? Like in your elo or whatever, however they make matchmaking, you tend to go against the same people over and over after a long period of time, especially once you get to like the higher tier of Master Ball or just Master Ball in general. So hopefully this video kind of gives you an idea of what I was trying to say. It's not the initial video that I meant to do when I sat down to make a video today. However, when looking at the numbers, I'm like, I can't sit down here and tell you, oh, this Tapu Koko deck is great. I do believe it's great. I do believe it could get you win streaks. There's other streamers like Varoom that took this deck and got 300 points in one single sitting, which is insane. But again, they were feeding off the meta at the time, which was a bunch of Charizards. Sylveon Greninja, you have a good matchup against. Maybe there was some Solgaleos running around. It's that type of thing that you have to react to. And I guess I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people in my chat or in my streams be asking, oh, what should I do? I'm in Ultra Ball 2. I want to get to Master Ball. What could I do? Or what should I do? And I guess my step 1 is have a rotation. Step 2, react, adapt to the meta that you have in front of you. Don't try to guess. Don't take the very next game personally either. If you watch these top players, that the top 100, the top 50, the top 3, they not only are they playing many more games than us, so their sample size or their experience is far more accurate to like what will happen to you in the long run. Like, don't be mad because you queued up Oricorio and your next matchup is like Garchomp that has the type advantage, because not only is it like a winnable matchup, which is not what we're talking about here. Mathematically, it's just chance that it happened. There's no algorithm that's trying to counter you, although it feels like it a lot. Trust me, I know it feels like that, but there's no algorithm. You just the algorithm is that there's certain decks that are popular at certain times, whether it's a certain time of day or a certain time of meta, and you just gotta adapt to it and make the best of it. And eventually, you'll get a win streak. You'll get the best of it and just climb. And always be prepared to go to the next deck. Try not to get stuck on forcing a deck to be the one that gets you anywhere. As just because it worked for somebody doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And just because it didn't work for somebody doesn't mean it won't work for you. So feel free to use your Survivor Rampardos. Feel free to use your Solgaleos. Feel free to use your Charizards. I know if you watch my streams or you watch my videos, I tend to talk bad about those decks a lot. But it's just because I have bad luck and my rare candies are never on time. However, if you're getting to your turn 2 Charizards, by all means, climb to Master Ball. Do your thing. Do that Charizard. But regardless, I hope all this yapping meant something to somebody. Personally, it's just the main idea, if there's any idea to take from this, is pay attention to the meta, have more than one deck, and best of luck. I guess, yeah. A good luck also tends to help out. That's enough yapping for one video. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing and tune into my live streams, as I don't know if I'll keep doing these 4 hours one deck things, but I'm definitely still trying to climb to top 100. As impossible as it seems with all these win streaks and people not dropping the game. So yeah, just stay pro.